I'm a poet and occasional playwright. I work at Teesside University as a senior lecturer part-time in creative writing. I've done so for about, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. But that's part-time, and in the other part of my work has been to work as a freelance writer, working in schools and with community groups and lots of different groups on specific projects, using creative writing, art and drama as a vehicle for personal development and dealing with certain social or emotional issues. Done hundreds of projects over the last 20 years or so. I ran a press called Exoban with Andy Willoughby for probably about 15, 16 years. That's on a bit of a hiatus at the moment, but we publish lots of books, anthologies promoting local writers' works and magazines. We ran a magazine called Keenaz for about 8 years that showcased art and writing from the Tees Valley, and also a series of live events under various names, including Keenaz Live, Writing Visions, the Electric Kool-Aid Cabaret, and that was a way of trying to bring in national and international names to Teesside, but also put on the stage beside them lots of really talented local writers and spoken word artists to try and bring attention to the fact that Teesside may seem like a marginal area nationally and even regionally, and it often gets overlooked. But despite that, there's, as long as I can remember, there's been a wealth of vibrant literary scene here, and it often gets overlooked. And so all these different activities, bringing international writers here, taking writers out and about, down to London, to Finland, to Estonia, to different places, was a way of trying to draw attention to the fact that Middlesbrough is actually a hub of creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. As you know, I came up here from London, where I spent 25 years in various creative scenes, music initially, and then theatre, poetry. And I've just always been really, really excited about what I've seen happening in Teesside. Maybe because it hasn't got this big reputation, it hasn't got these immense names that pack Wembley Stadium, whatever. I've never really been interested in that. What it did have was this amazing atmosphere about it, and a real mix of different people. And normally it's like, if you go to a poetry night in London, it's quite a big night and it's a certain kind of poetry. And it's like, no matter how brilliant poetry is, kind of by the end of the night, it's got tired, no matter how. Yeah, exactly. It's like you do get poetry fatigue, and I just find that everything that I've been to in Teesside, it's just a really, really brilliant mix, and it's held.
Yeah, that's exactly what we tried to do and I was aware of that because I've got poetry fatigue from various events. So we always try to mix it up. So we have bands on and live music, and then some poetry, and then maybe some comedians or a dramatic sketch, and then back to some poetry. So it was much more of a kind of variety show, and also the important thing was the participatory nature of it, so that the audience feel a sense of ownership. So whether that's through open mic or through slots of different writers that are local to the area, as well as these kind of national big names or international names. So I think
not knocking it. I mean, being able to take my lads to see Linton Kwesi Johnson when they were, I think they were 6 and 9 years old at that time when he came to to read at Teesside, and I can't believe they actually sat quietly for 2 hours during that. It's kind of a proud moment. And then, you know, something the other extreme, being able to take them to Cruel Britannia, like the Sleaford Mods exhibition at Disgraceland a couple of years ago. So I just feel like they've had such a rich cultural history by growing up around here, and I just think that's a brilliant thing for them to have had. And it's also interesting what you're saying about all the work that you've done with various groups over the decades, and the overlooked aspect of the arts is, for me, the contribution that it makes to people's mental health and well-being, and how much it probably saves our government in people that would otherwise break down, people that would otherwise be calling on mental health services that are already pushed to the limit. And I just think that that's a brilliant thing, because you've worked with all kinds of different groups, haven't you?
Yeah, we've worked with groups of people that are homeless or recovering from homelessness, with people suffering from various addictions, with refugee groups and asylum seekers, with teenage mums, with elderly people in residential care homes, or elderly carers of children who have disabilities, disability groups, all sorts. And it use the same kind of exercises that you would use on an MA course. You just have to pitch it slightly differently, but the same strategies work anyway, because we all have these basic needs of creating a dialogue with ourselves, and that's what art does.
Yeah, brilliant. So how did it all start? What, have you always been involved in the creative arts? How did you come to be a senior lecturer at Teesside and running these events here in particular?
Okay, so when I was about 19 or 20, there was I started going to, I left school with no qualifications at all, just kind of dropped out. I had no confidence in myself or being let down. I slipped through the system. So I was unemployed, but I was always writing. I was always writing stories at the time, but not poetry. I hadn't really been exposed to poetry. But I was writing lots of stories, and then there was Leeds University had an annex in Middlesbrough on Harrow Road, and they ran a kind of program of outreach, creative writing workshops in libraries across Teesside. And one of them was at Berwick Girls Library, and my parents still live close to that. So I went to that, and that's where I met Trev Teasdale, and because he was tutoring it, and and I met Val McGee and various other people at that point, and I kind of got involved in the literary activities of that sprang out of that. There was the Write Around Festival at that time, so I got involved in that, in being a member of the kind of organising committee. And there was a magazine that was produced called Outlet that Trev Teasdale and a few others used to run, and so I started to write for that as well and help in editing it. And Trev said that my work was good and that I should do something else with it rather than I was chipping Darbo off bricks for a living at that point on a building site, and he said I should go and do a degree. And I thought, well, I've got no qualifications, I can't do a degree. And he said, well, try anyway, make some applications. So I applied to Crewe and Alsager College of Higher Education, because there wasn't many places at that time doing creative writing. So, but I applied, and they offered me a place, and so I moved down to Crewe and did my BA in creative arts. But because it was creative arts rather than just creative writing, I specialised in creative writing, but you also looked at integrated arts theory and practice. So I was working alongside dancers and dramatists and filmmakers and visual artists and all sorts. It was like the kids from Fame, basically. It was brilliant. And it totally changed my conception of art and its usefulness, but also transformed me completely, because I suddenly realised I wasn't as stupid as I'd led to believe, and it was my schooling and lack of opportunities that had made me think that I was stupid. So when I finished that degree, I came back to Middlesbrough, and again I started to teach for Leeds University for a while, and got involved in Paranoia Press and the Write Around Festival and all sorts of exciting things that were going on at the time. Then Leeds University drew back all their outreach work, and there was a massive gap in the area because there was no one running creative writing workshops. So I approached Teesside University and I said, I'll write you some modules as part of the English degree. And they were a bit wary about it for a while, because creative writing wasn't seen in those days as a legitimate mode of academic study. So they were eventually persuaded to let me do some summer school modules, and they proved really popular. So we started to do some summer school modules, and gradually it was recognised as a valid form of educational practice. And from that, they integrated, well, first they established the master's degree, and then, well, me and Andy were actually writers in residence for a year at the university, and that's when we set up, and with Chris Thurgodos, the skeleton for the master's degree. And we piloted that and ran it for a few years, and then they started introducing creative writing into the undergraduate degree strands as well. But all that was part-time, and in the meantime we were still publishing books and working out in the community and schools. But that was really valuable because it allowed the bridge between the academic study and various community groups, and lots of people that we worked with out in the community then came in to the university who would never have done so because of various ideas about exclusion and inclusion, which I totally get, because that's what my experience was as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me as well, I'm kind of when I grew up, the idea that I could do it was ridiculous. You know, my dad needed contributions to the mortgage, really, so I, you know, at secretarial school, and then straight out as soon as I finished, like within a week, out to my first job. And no one in my family has ever been to university. And then yeah, but post kids, trying to go back to work, and it just being absolutely horrific, and then losing my kind of dad, and then it was just unbelievable, because I really wanted to do creative writing, and I think there were 3 places in the country that were offering it, and one happened to be Teesside University just up the road, and I just, you know, couldn't believe my luck, and doing the BA and the MA there was, you know, pretty much one of the best decisions in my entire life. It's everything for me, you know. Wouldn't be sitting here now being an artist and all that. You know, it was so far beyond. And again, I'd always engaged. It's always been something I'd done, but I'd had a proper job, proper job, and the arts was something I did in my free time. And now that's my proper job's disappeared, and now this is hopefully what I do for the foreseeable. Is there anything else that you want to say, Bob? I think I've covered all my areas. Oh, the only last thing is lockdown, and how has that affected you?
It's been very tough, actually. I mean, I've managed to continue teaching, but from home, using Teams and Blackboard and all sorts of things. And that, initially that was a challenge, but I've managed to get on top of it, and I think it's having a face-to-face lesson, but it's there are some advantages to it, in terms of you can do individual tutorials and stuff like that still. So that works. I've done some freelance work while during lockdown as well. Again, through kind of more remote facilitation, and that's been interesting. It's difficult though to engage new participants. It's okay doing it with people that you've already established a relationship with, or who've broken through the preconceptions about their worth and their worthiness to contribute creatively. It's difficult to engage them and overcome that through this more remote way of teaching. But for those that you've already worked with or you have a relationship with, I think it works quite well. In terms of my own personal stuff, I've written absolutely loads during lockdown, just as a way of trying to cope with it. I've got a full collection written.
Well, that's terrific. I'm glad you've been able to do that. And again, it comes back to that the impact that art can have on our mental well-being. And yeah, I find it impossible to write, but I've been running my club. I've got this.
Yeah, you've been very busy
doing this, so yeah, it's keeping me focused. And finally, the homeschooling for me is over. So,
yeah.
So
that was a challenge
to do other things. Yeah, rather you than me. I don't think teaching's my thing. Bob, this has been brilliant. It's been really, really nice to chat to you, and can't thank you enough for all the impact you've had on my life, and it's really fantastic that you're still out there doing that and helping other people break through and realise that they can be artists after all.
That's sweet. Thank you.
All right, take care, Bob.
And you. Bye-bye.